Before we start to read today's reading from Matthew's Gospel, let's just orientate ourselves a little bit in the flow of the story that Matthew tells, and particularly around the word authority, which is a key one for certainly the first part of today's reading. And remind ourselves, first of all, that early in the Gospel, the authority of Jesus is very much to the fore. And so in Matthew, at the end of chapter 7 of Matthew, we have this comment which is repeated in different parts of the Gospels in different ways. But the observation, for Jesus taught them as one having authority, but not as their scribes. As we try and reconstruct a historical picture of the person of Jesus, maybe ask that imaginative question, what would it have been like to have met Jesus had we been around at the time? I think one of the things we can very much focus on as fairly a solid conclusion is this sense that the experience of people of Jesus during his earthly ministry was of somebody with this enigmatic authority. The Gospels don't really try and pin that down. Particularly, it seems to be one of those things where people say, well, we don't know exactly what it was. You had to be there, really. But Jesus spoke with authority, and it was distinctive and enigmatic. Go to the other end of the Gospel. And of course, the Gospels are equally clear. But when Jesus dies on the cross, there is again an enigmatic kind of authority being expressed, the authority of God. And when the Romans nail that sign above Jesus' head, King of the Jews, it's not just sort of ironic on behalf of the Romans, but there is a deep and enigmatic and puzzling truth to it, that there is a victory won here and the authority of God is being shown in this extremely paradoxical way. So whenever we hear the word authority in the Gospel, we know that there's something a little bit strange going on that may not be as obvious as we first thought. And so as we hear the word now and the question of Jesus' authority, I think we should understand it not as a question of, well, does Jesus have the right to say and do what he does or not? Because that Jesus spoke and acted with authority is clearly accepted and recognised throughout the Gospel story and by those who met him. The question really is, what kind of authority is this? How do we make sense of this authority? And particularly, how are we meant to respond to this enigmatic authority that is clearly there in the person and ministry of Jesus? So let's listen. We're in Matthew chapter 21, and we are starting at verse 23. When Jesus entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" Jesus said to them, "I will also ask you one question. If you tell me the answer, then I will also tell you by what authority I do these things. Did the baptism of John come from heaven, or is it of human origins?" And they argued with one another. If we say from heaven, he will say to us, "Well, why did you not believe him?" But if we say of human origin, we are afraid of the crowd, for all regard John as a prophet. So they answered Jesus, "We do not know." And he said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." What do you think? A man had 2 sons. He went to the first and said, "Son, go and work in the vineyard today." He answered him, "I will not." But he later changed his mind and went. The father went to the second and said the same, and he answered, "I go, sir." But he did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his Father. They said, "The first." Jesus said to them, "Truly I tell you, the tax collectors and prostitutes are going into the kingdom of God ahead of you. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But the tax collectors and the prostitutes believed him. And even after you saw it, you did not change your minds and believe him." It's a parable about a change of mind, and we might add a change of heart. And maybe we could remind ourselves that, of course, to those for whom the authority structures of the world have never made sense, those who are rejected on the outside, those who feel excluded from mainstream society, when they are confronted with the enigmatic authority of Jesus, which seems to speak in a different language and work in a different way and require people to seriously rethink their idea of how authority works, well, such people maybe will find it a whole lot easier to change their mind, to adjust the mental furniture in their minds as to what it might mean to respond to this enigmatic authority that they see in Jesus. To those who have authority in the world, and maybe have then constructed their picture of God's authority as buttresses to their own place and standing in the world, to make that same rearrangement of their mental furniture will be a whole lot more challenging. And that phrase of Jesus, the first will be last, and the last first. The authority of Jesus that the Gospels bear witness to is this enigmatic authority that requires us to rethink what it means to speak of a God who is the king of his kingdom, is ruler of the world and ruler of our lives. We're tempted sometimes to wonder and ask if the church could not speak with more authority in the world in which we live, a world in need of guidance and encouragement. I guess we need to remember, if ever we seek to speak with authority, it is with that enigmatic authority that we know of Jesus and we see displayed in the Gospels. It's that kind of authority to which we need to bear witness.